Hello YouTube and welcome to my channel, Steamy Jimmy, and today I'd like to discuss some obscure appearances by Bomberman. Most people are familiar with the character himself and the gameplay that goes along with it, but since I've started doing research, I found many people are unaware of the series games. Even more so are the cameos that have appeared across other game series, so I'd like to take the time to share all the ones that I found with you. I should mention, many of these games were released only in Japan, so many of us living in other countries shouldn't be surprised that these seem to be out of left field. Now, without further ado, let's get into it. Our first game is Bakuto Hajike Taisen for the Game Boy Advance. That title is a real mouthful. This game is based on the anime series Bobobo, where characters behave wildly and over the top, with a golden afro-donning protagonist named Bobobo leading the charge. This game is a 2D fighter, with many of the characters from the show performing wacky signature moves. Now it relates to Bomberman through an unlockable mode. Clear story mode with Bobobo and head to the shop and purchase this item for 4,900 points. Then, you can play it by going to the pig and selecting the mode Bo Bomberman. Basically, this is 30 stages that play just like the classic Bomberman on NES, except all the enemies are replaced with characters from the show, and you play as Bobobo himself. Aside from that, there's really nothing unique. The game was created by Hudson Soft, who also made Bomberman, so the reference isn't too much of a surprise. What is a surprise, though, is the ending. Our next game is Star Parodia. This game is a shoot-'em-up that throws all common sense out the window in a similar vein to Parodius. There are 3 possible ships to choose from, one piloted by a female, a giant robot Bomberman piloted by a tiny Bomberman, and the console itself. Yes, the PC engine itself is playable in this game. I can't really think of any other video game where you can play as the machine it was made for. Talk about meta. Bomberman uses an arsenal that isn't too unusual. Choosing the red flame power-ups increases his regular bullets, as well as firing them in different directions. Choosing the blue flame power-up allows him to throw bombs which increase in count and do bigger damage, and choosing the yellow flame power-ups allows him to shoot explosive balloons from his body that will float across the screen and cause heavy damage. On top of that, he can even collect multiple options which take the form of tiny Bombermen. They follow the path behind him and fire additional bullets which come in handy. This game also features an area that is based around the Bomberman games themselves. Stage 6 features tiny soft blocks and enemies which can be destroyed as you fly over them. It's a great callback to see all the familiar little monsters running around, all the while the stage plays a remix song from an actual Bomberman game. The boss of said stage is Black Bomberman, White's eternal rival. He fights you just like he would in an actual battle in a Bomberman game and rounds out the experience nicely. Next is a more obscure game known as Do-Re-Mi Fantasy. Remember that game on NES called Milon's Secret Castle? Well, this game features Milon himself, but in a side-scrolling platformer for the Super Nintendo. That alone is quite a step up from the original game. Upon defeating the first boss, you enter a cutscene where Milon runs into Dr. Mitsumori, or Dr. Memory as the fan translation would have it. The Doctor introduces himself and the 2 Bomberman he just created, White and Black. The wall before Milon is blocked, and you can select either one of them to try and destroy it for you. If you select White, things go as planned without any problems. If you select Black, he destroys the wall but also hurts Milon in the process while scolding him as he goes. The player doesn't incur any penalty, but it does make you feel bad for Milon though. Now let's discuss Quiz Caravan Cult Q for the PC Engine CD. Whoever is naming these games really needs to reconsider their day job. There's no way anyone will remember this name. Anyway, there's an adventure mode where the player can make their way through several quiz-filled worlds, all of which are based on Hudson Soft properties. The first world, as you may have guessed, is all about Bomberman. You roll the die and progress along a predetermined path until you reach White Bomber himself. You must then answer several questions in succession in order to proceed. This opens you to the second half of the board, where you must reach Black Bomber, who is awaiting you with the same type of challenge. I have no idea what any of the answers are, so thank God for save states or I never would have made it. One thing that's interesting is that there are items you can land on which will aid you. The skate, bomb, and fire are all present from the Bomberman series. I can't read Japanese, so I have no idea what they do, but I'm sure it helps. White Bomber himself also appears in the Time Attack and the multiplayer modes as the host. Not to mention, you can even play as Red Bomber and other various characters from Hudson Soft properties when going head to head, and wait, is that the PC Engine again? That makes 2 games now where you can play as the console. You never cease to surprise me, Hudson Soft. Here's a rather unknown game, Last Legion UX on N64. You play as giant robots in a 3D fighting game that's actually pretty cool. The game mostly utilizes guns, but there are a few melee moves as well. Unfortunately, the game is pretty clunky and primitive, so it doesn't hold up well, but it was a nice effort for the time. Here, we can unlock 2 characters of interest, Bomberman, or Bomberon as the game says, and Metal Bomber. Making them playable is an arduous task, as you must complete 5 story mode campaigns for the former and all 6 campaigns for the latter. You will face them in an extra stage before battling the final boss, and defeating them will make them available. Bomberon is simply a Bomberman piloting a large machine with a hammer, while Metal Bomber is a solid metal Bomberman wielding a fan? They can attack using bombs that are larger when thrown in midair, and their special attack is a trail of giant Bomberman heads that follow you. I think they ran out of ideas by that point. I'm surprised no one else has ever taken the time to point out this cameo, since it's not 1, but 2 fully playable Bomberman characters in a game outside of their own series. I suppose this game being Japanese exclusive really makes it difficult for anyone to keep up with. Continuing on, now we have Asterix and Obelix XXL2 for the PlayStation 2. It was only released in Europe, which is quite unusual indeed. Asterix is a series of French comics that dates back as far as the late 1950s. According to Wikipedia, he and his friend Obelix try to resist Roman occupation in the year 50 BC as they pursue adventures in their hometown and in other countries. It often includes a lot of satire, as you can see in the box art here. Throughout this game, there are a number of video game references and Easter eggs, which of course leads us to some Bomberman stuff. Some of the bombs that are to be used in certain locations resemble Bomberman's face, as well as some of the surfaces that are supposed to be destroyed as well. The real interesting bit, though, comes early on in the game. In one of the tutorial areas, there is a series of cages that will swing by. Inside, you can see costumes for Sonic the Hedgehog, Bomberman, and even Paige from Beyond Good and Evil. Funny how a full-body cameo of Bomberman seemed to find its way in here. It can also be seen in another one of the tutorial rooms, but is less visible. Coming up on our list, we have Tetris Party for the WiiWare. One of the modes you can select is called Shadow Mode. Essentially, you try to fill in the darkened spaces completely while having as few blocks as possible outside the silhouette. When you reach stage 7, you'll notice a familiar outline. This comes as no surprise considering Hudson Soft developed this game as well. This stage can also be seen on the re-release Tetris Party Deluxe, which was released for Nintendo Wii and the DS. Speaking of the Wii, our final game to discuss is Lost in Shadow. This game is really surreal. You play as the shadow of a boy who is flung from the top of a great tower. As the shadow, you manipulate the physical world around you to complete puzzles and open the path leading back towards the top of the tower. Late in the game, when you reach Tram Section 1, floors 44 to 45, there is a special area of interest. You will need to follow the path in this video to reach the 3rd red eye orb. Once there, use the Wiimote cursor to manipulate the light switch. On the left side of the wall, you'll notice a Bomberman sprite emerge from the shadows with the right setting. Once again, this game was developed by Hudson Soft. Those developers really found a sneaky little way to hide him in there. Special thanks to Rex Tintor Z on GameFAQs for finding this. Well, we've covered a sizable number of games, from hidden sprites and guest appearances to fully playable characters. We've seen it all. Well, almost. One final cameo remains, and this time, it happens in an anime. Virus Buster Surge, a show from 1997 where the futuristic city of Neo Hong Kong enjoys cutting-edge technology. However, a being known as the Virus has been infecting machines and causing chaos and dark things to happen. Sounds about right. In episode 6, right before the commercial break, our hero Surge encounters a sinister figure known as the Brain Lizard. This is our first introduction to the enemy, and when announcing himself on a digital screen, he casts a spell of blinding light. Once it clears, we see this. Can you believe that? An anime villain summons Bomberman, who proceeds to blow the shit out of a guy through a television screen. How crazy is that? It was stunning to see this for the first time. How had I never heard of this before, I wondered. Even better, just listen to the English dub of this scene. Now that's some pitiful voice acting if I've ever heard it. I could do a better job than that. Having my curiosity piqued, I did a little digging. The series actually began as a video game which was developed by, you guessed it, Hudson Soft. It was released for the Sega Saturn in Japan of August 1997, known simply as Virus. The anime surfaced shortly after in October 1997. It comes as no surprise since Hudson was involved that Bomberman could appear in this anime, but who would have known? The show was only 12 episodes, so there's a good chance that anyone who saw it during its limited run wouldn't remember it. Funny how dated things can have interesting bits just waiting to be discovered. I am glad I discovered this though, as the scene itself is worth watching over and over. That about covers everything I have. I haven't taken the time to delve into the game Virus, shame on me, but one day I hope to do so. I hope you all enjoyed seeing these cameos and are as surprised as I was. It's mind-blowing to me that given Bomberman's lengthy legacy as a video game character, that no one has taken the time to compile this growing list of appearances. Maybe one day I'll have more to show, but for now, this is it. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay steamy my friends, and we'll be back soon.